I can't believe I'm already saying this, but guys, 2025 is already almost over, and with it, another great year of games have come and gone. Following the pretty lackluster year of 2024, 2025 has come along and given us a plethora of incredibly amazing games. We got massive titles from AAA studios, heavily anticipated sequels, and lots, and I mean lots of incredible indie games. But after a slightly controversial Game Awards, we have to ask the question, which games truly deserve to win? And most importantly, what should have won Game of the Year? So let's take a look at a couple of my favorite games from this year, and try to find exactly which moments are truly going to be remembered. But first, how about a few of my honorable mentions? I'll just admit it right away, I don't own a Switch 2. And honestly, it's because I didn't think it was really worth it. It's way too expensive, the graphics are outdated, and the games for the most part seem really lackluster. But probably the one caveat that's saving Nintendo right now is Donkey Kong Bonanza. From what I've seen, Bonanza is the only game from the Switch 2 that people have been really talking about. I mean, it looks decently fun, but seeing how I've never actually played it, I can't really put Bonanza on my real list. But I do think its success is enough to place it in my honorable mentions. And even though it didn't actually win Game of the Year, it was still good enough to be in the running, and was easily one of the biggest games from this year. At the time I'm writing this, Arc Raiders has only been out for a couple of weeks now. However, this game has absolutely exploded in popularity, and it seems like practically everybody has been playing it, me included. It's an extraction shooter with absolutely gorgeous graphics and addictive gameplay. However, like most extraction shooters, I kind of felt its core mechanics to be a bit repetitive, and without a full story or anything to entice me to keep playing, I honestly got bored pretty quickly. That, coupled with the fact that it hasn't really had the time to prove itself, meant I didn't think it deserved anything more than an honorable mention, at least so far. With so many incredible games this year, it was really hard to pick the few games that would end up on my actual list. And unfortunately, one of the games that regrettably had to be cut was Ghost of Yotei. The game's predecessor, Ghost of Tsushima, is considered to be one of the best open-world games of all time, and is often talked about alongside titans of the industry, such as Elden Ring and Red Dead Redemption. However, there's not nearly as much buzz around Yotei as I initially hoped. The graphics look good, and the gameplay also feels fun, but what I think is holding it back so much, and what I think holds back so many other sequels, is its lack of originality. Yotei plays a lot like Tsushima, and when I mean a lot, I mean the games are pretty much clones of one another. Apart from a few differences, the games are essentially the same, just with different characters and a different story, which I also think ended up being pretty mid. So yeah, I really didn't feel good enough about this game to add it to my actual list. However, I will admit though, if you enjoyed Tsushima, you will definitely enjoy Yotei as well. But with those games out of the way, why don't we get to the ones that really define 2025?
Many things can't help but change, you see.
Cruelty, collaboration. I'm back, baby.
Okay, immediately I know some of you may be pretty mad at me. Death Stranding might actually be the biggest game in the race for Game of the Year, at least in terms of the prestige behind its developers and history. But just give me a chance to explain myself, alright? The Death Stranding games have always been a weird one for me. Hideo Kojima's first work outside of Konami, the original Death Stranding was a deep, introspective comment on the isolationist tendencies modern society imposes onto us. In a time where everybody was shut inside due to the pandemic, these themes about finding connection really spoke to a lot of us, including me. Yeah, while the gameplay might have been a bit repetitive, and the story and the characters needed more refinement, the game's central themes about building a community, coupled with that classic weirdness that we've come to expect from Kojima's works, allowed it to become something of a cult classic within gaming. But Death Stranding 2 feels a lot different. Right off the bat, this game is a lot more palatable, with more refined gameplay and a better paced and clearer story. It moves on from these themes of loneliness and isolation, and instead focuses on new ideas about grief and the ways to overcome it. In many ways, Death Stranding 2 feels like a major improvement from the original. However, even though it's really hard to explain, I feel like it's missing some of the things that made the first Death Stranding so special. For one, I think the game's overall vibes felt a little bit flat. Potentially, my favorite thing from the original Death Stranding was its hauntingly beautiful world design and atmosphere. Set in a post-apocalyptic world, it perfectly reflected the game's themes of isolation. but the sequel instead offered a much more lively setting, one more chaotic and action-oriented. This also extends to the difficulty of these games. While the original's long walks and journeys gave us an intimidating and daunting impression, the more easygoing strolls of the sequel kind of felt underwhelming, and that sense of fear and danger wasn't there anymore. So while these aren't necessarily bad things, I just felt that the original's atmosphere was one that was able to affect its audience in more profound ways. Again, it's really difficult to put into words, as my point is pretty subjective, but I've seen a lot of people feel the same way. Personally, while I feel Death Stranding 2 is a better game, I honestly prefer the original. But like I was saying earlier, the Death Stranding series will always hold a special place in my heart, and even if I may not have had the absolute best experience playing Death Stranding 2, it still is a really fantastic game, and truly is deserving to be on this list.
Till the morning.
There was once a red prince who sat on a red throne. He had a red crown made of rubies and a red castle made of stone. But one day the prince saw something new. And if you look closely, you might see it too. The prince had a new favorite color. The color blue.
Blue Prince is easily my most underrated game of 2025. A roguelike puzzle game jam-packed with lore and mysteries, it has probably become my favorite puzzle game of all time. Blue Prince follows Simon, the new heir to the mysterious Hawley estate, which was previously owned by his puzzle-loving great-uncle Herbert S. Sinclair. However, in order to inherit his uncle's will and own the entire estate, Simon must first uncover the hidden 46th room of the 45-room mansion. With constantly shifting rooms that contain complex puzzles and riddles, we slowly explore this mansion, each day learning more and more about the secrets behind the perplexing chambers and Simon's mysterious family. Unlike so many other puzzle games that I've played, Blue Prince's gameplay offers challenging yet actually fun puzzles, and forces you to really think in your search of the 46th room. But despite the challenge, the game is still able to remain intriguing, with engrossing puzzles that lie in both the gameplay and the narrative. For behind its seemingly simple and straightforward premise, the hidden lore and secrets behind Blue Prince actually surprised me with just how deep its world building really went. Just a small little spoiler, but I was not expecting this game to include an extremely complex political narrative, which even included a whole Nazi-like regime. Personally, I feel like lore in video games has always fallen into two different camps, either really obscure or right in your face. And I just feel like it's so rare that I find a game that's able to craft a narrative that encourages the player to search for more information, while not being super vague and having us stupid gamers needing to look for a breakdown of it all on YouTube. And Blue Prince does this. It gives you everything you need to fully understand both the puzzles and its story, without just shoving it in your face. It's complex and thought-provoking, but not impossible, and gives the opportunity for us regular people to actually understand everything that's going on. The only reason why I couldn't place this game higher was simply because it just didn't have enough of an impact in the gaming community. If it got more popular, I truly think Blue Prince could have had a really large impact on this industry, and set a precedent for others that a video game can be intellectual, while still being entertaining and have a gripping story. I just hope that some AAA studios could learn from this game, and try to make something actually requiring intellect. And yeah, I'm looking at you, Nintendo. On this channel, I usually talk about single-player games. They're the ones that feel the most personal, carry the most emotional weight, and leave the biggest impact. At least, that's what I thought until I played It Takes Two by Hazelight Studios. This game opened up an entirely new world for me. It made me realize that you can have an emotional experience from a co-op, and most importantly, had me learn that you can share one of these incredible experiences with someone else. And this year, I'm glad to say that another game by Hazelight Studios once again completely redefined what I thought was possible in this medium. Split Fiction is another extremely fun co-op game that centers around two main characters, a science fiction writer named Mio and a fantasy writer named Zoe. I know I was kind of hyping this game up to have this really deep storyline, but to be honest, I don't think this story offers the kind of emotional weight that It Takes Two offered. However, when I said this game redefined my preconceptions on video games, I really did mean it. Split Fiction makes up for its slightly subpar narrative with insanely fun and genre-bending gameplay. It contains level designs that have some of the wildest and unique characteristics that I've ever seen, with constantly shifting perspectives and an insane whirlwind of new styles and unpredictable mechanics. This game can at times look like one of those 3D virtual rollercoaster rides, then the next second move to become a top-down puzzle game or a 2D platformer. It's probably the craziest, adrenaline-filled gaming experience that I've had this year, and from start to end it'll have you and your partner laughing, stressed, and confused all at the same time. I mean, just look at some of this gameplay. Split Fiction combines so many different styles, so many different mechanics, it blurs the line between our traditional notions of what sort of genres really exist in this medium. It truly is a love letter to the entirety of gaming, and every new level seems to take inspiration from other incredible games, while still making sure to add its own distinct spin to it. So, despite a kinda simple and disappointing story, if you're looking for a ridiculously fun gaming experience, and are wanting to share it with someone you really care about, nothing this year really beats Split Fiction.
I was never meant to be a warrior. I was a peasant.
You chose a different path than I wanted for you.
Most games that have historical settings usually just use it for that. A mere backdrop, a wallpaper, that only serves to enhance the game's aesthetic. But Kingdom Come: Deliverance II does something pretty different. It treats its medieval time period as not just a setting, but the engine to which the entire game functions. It takes the term realism to a whole different level. Everything, from the combat to the social interactions you have with others, tries to be as realistic as possible. Yeah, it can sometimes be a little tedious, but then again, so is real life. For those of you who haven't played the first game, this is a medieval RPG type game, where you play as Henry, a knight set out for revenge who gets caught up in a civil war in his country of Bohemia. And when I say RPG, I mean that in basically every facet of the word. Like I said, this is a game steeped in historical realism, and although the story is made up, it still tries its best to stay true to the time period. The same can also be said for the setting. If you were to walk into a random village, you would find the authentic things that would be there in real life, like a market, a tavern, a monastery, and be filled with NPCs and characters that serve actual jobs. Everything in this game feels intentional, and the details in the world building are actually some of the best I've ever seen. Bohemia doesn't feel like just a normal game, but an entire world separate to our own, one that's able to function completely by itself, and everything within it serves a specific purpose to keep the world going. It's so extremely rare that I find a game like this, or any other kind of media for that matter, and it always makes me begin to appreciate just how much time and effort and care was put into these things. The last time I experienced something like this was probably when I last played Baldur's Gate 3, which is a game that I absolutely love. Seriously, this game is incredible, and completely exemplifies everything that makes a good RPG. So I can promise that if you can get past the difficult game mechanics, you'll begin to enter this entirely separate world that you won't ever want to leave. Supergiant Games have been in the industry for a pretty long time now. Although they've had many hit games like Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre, it really wasn't until 2020 where they truly had a breakout game in Hades. Last year, I played the original Hades for the first time, and I have to say, I immediately fell in love. I usually don't enjoy roguelikes, and it might just be because I'm lazy and don't enjoy the process of repeating the same things over and over again, but I've never really been too engrossed in a game like that. But Hades completely changed that perception for me. It takes the idea of a roguelike and cleverly intertwines it within its story, giving an explanation for the constant restarting and also offered this entirely new take on the Greek myths that I already enjoyed. And so, I'm happy to say that Hades 2 had all of that, and much more. It takes everything that made the original so incredible, like its roguelike combat and fun and quirky characters, and perfects it. Supergiant put a lot of content in this game, practically double than in the original Hades, and as always, its hand-drawn art style looks incredible. It also offers a much more complicated and multifaceted combat system, which fully plays into its roguelike nature. With so many different combinations of boons, weapons, companions, Hades 2 lets the player go wild, maximizing the amount of builds for the player to experiment with. Every run is completely different than the last, and it's practically impossible to completely replicate the exact same run. But despite all of that, at its heart, Hades 2 still retains the central themes and ideas that made me love the original so much. Modern media nowadays seem to love anything related to Greek mythology. For my generation, pretty much everybody read the Percy Jackson series. And before that, I know there were a lot of iterations of these myths on television and in film. But what was missing throughout all of these different forms of the Greek pantheon was the fact that none of them ever felt like a real family. Sure, there have been many efforts trying to humanize these gods, but never anything that focused on their family ties. And that's why I love Hades' rendition of them so much. For as complicated and confusing the family tree is for these immortal beings, in the end, there's still a family. No matter how much they fight or bicker, there still remains a close bond between them. Even Kronos, a hateful father figure who despises his kids for usurping his throne, still has a love for his family, a fact that we see Melanoe slowly revealed throughout the story. And yeah, I know the game's ending has been redone like a million times now, but in the end, I think the ending they settled with perfectly encapsulates everything the Hades series represents, even if it felt a little bit unpolished. It closed off all of the character arcs in sensible and meaningful ways, and now that they've actually finished, I think Supergiant can finally take a bow for the amazing work they've done for this game. Hades may honestly be one of the most influential indie games of all time, and the impact it's had for roguelikes and other indie studios has inspired an entirely new generation. I'll admit it, I have zero clue whether or not Supergiant wants to continue the series. But what I can say is that the work they've done created some of my favorite games of all time.
How do you really feel about your father?
I'm doing that thing where I imagine being with someone, you know? I'm not done saving you yet.
You think you can beat the bad by being good, but there's no solving human nature.
Dispatch is the most recent game added on this list, and by the time I'm writing this, the final ending has only just dropped a couple days ago. Although most of you are probably already familiar with this game by now, just a quick recap, Dispatch is an episodic, choice-driven type of game where you play as Robert Robertson. Yes, that's his real name, a former hero by the name of Mecha Man. After being forced to retire, Robert is recruited to be a dispatcher for this new superhero team of ex-villains called Z-Team, where he must work to eventually be a hero again. And let me just get this out of the way, I think this might be the best attempt at making a game fit to be put on television that we've seen as of yet. The animation is outstanding and goes beyond anything we've really seen in this medium. Yeah, there have been a lot of games with really good visuals, but there's usually a distinction between the graphics in cutscenes and in the gameplay. But with the way Dispatch is structured, all of the gameplay are essentially cutscenes, making it basically like a movie. I mean, it truly looks as good, if not even better, than the high-profile animated shows you see on streaming services nowadays. Its story as well is also amazing, and contains some of the most lovable and unique characters I've ever seen in video games. It even started a whole waifu debate between Invisigal and Blonde Blazer, the likes of which we haven't seen since Final Fantasy VII. Not to mention, the dialogue and voice acting are also really good. They even got voice actors who worked on high-profile shows and movies like Breaking Bad and The Hunger Games. This truly felt, for a lack of a better word, cinematic in the experience that it gives the player. However, although it's primarily by design, this also ends up being kind of a weakness. Like I just mentioned, the developers of this game did their best to make it actually seem like a show, releasing episodes weekly and putting a large effort into the story and animation. But they didn't really leave too much time for the actual gameplay. Or rather, I don't think the core gameplay was present enough in the big story moments. It's pretty difficult to explain, but I just felt like the gameplay was brushed aside in favor of the narrative. And I don't know whether or not this is the public opinion, but the game mechanics themselves were pretty boring and disengaging. The dispatching and the puzzle minigames were both underwhelming for me, and I don't even know if there's ever a consequence for failing any one of these. And all of this is coming from a person who usually enjoys slower paced gameplay. The majority of the time, I felt like one of those people who always just skips the cutscenes, except this time it was the gameplay that I was trying to skip just so I could get right back into the story. Honestly, I think I'd prefer if this game remained as just a show, just one that incorporated the choose your own adventure style that remains at the core of Dispatch. Despite that, I still had an incredible time playing this game, and I completely fell in love with the story and characters. I mean, nothing's ever perfect, and as I finished the game and the credits rolled, I felt this familiar sense of hollowness, that satisfying yet bittersweet feeling you get after finishing an amazing game. I'm gonna miss the crazy cast of characters from the Z team, and everyone else we met throughout the story. But after it's all said and done, I don't think this will be the last time we see the Z team. There's surely gonna be a second season, and I'm telling you guys right now, we ain't seen nothing yet. "2025 was truly the year of the indie game. With massive hits like Hades 2 and Deltarune, the sheer volume of so many good indie games, coupled with the lackluster year for many larger companies, truthfully put AAA studios to shame. In a day and age where the gaming industry seems so corrupt and greedy, it's honestly a breath of fresh air to have this kind of year with so many high quality indie games. And I can't think of a better one that encapsulates the entirety of the hype that indie games got this year than Hollow Knight: Silksong. Silksong is far and away the most anticipated indie game of all time. Following the incredible success that the original Hollow Knight had, I was honestly a little scared when the game's release date was dropped. I knew that the developers, who were Team Cherry, had been working on this game for close to 8 years already, but the way the game was announced felt kind of premature, like they were about to release a game that wasn't ready yet. Well, once the game dropped, all of my fears were immediately put to rest. Despite being a sequel, I think Silksong more falls into the realm of spin-offs. The only remaining character from the previous game is Hornet, and the world we explore is an entirely new one. And just like their previous work, you can immediately feel the unrestrained passion that Team Cherry put into this game. I mean, it just feels like a passion project, in every facet of the word. The music, visuals, gameplay, you can tell the developers did care about this project, and those 8 years of work really did pay off. Christopher Larkin has come back and given us an absolute banger of a soundtrack. The graphics are, again, incredibly unique and colorful, and the combat. I mean, I already thought the original Hollow Knight had a really good combat system, but Silksong just takes it to a whole different level. Not only does it keep everything that made the original so good, like intuitive movement and unique charm abilities, but also adds on a plethora of new combat mechanics, which allows for a much more aggressive and fast-paced playstyle. And like I was saying before, it's just so refreshing to see a work like this getting as much attention as it got and continues to get. Every year, it seems like the rise in popularity of video games just keeps getting higher and higher. But just like most industries, video games have also fallen prey to the corrupt AAA companies that are interested in only making more money, rather than producing anything creative or unique. Most works by these companies nowadays feel heartless, nothing more than money grabs serving to exploit us consumers. And then Team Cherry comes along and sets the price for the most anticipated game of the year at a measly $20. It truly is an industry-defining game, and sets a good precedent to show everybody how a good gaming studio should actually run. Honestly, Team Cherry is slowly creeping its way to becoming one of the most influential and beloved studios in the industry. And while I have absolutely no idea what direction they'll go for their next project, I know I can promise that whatever it is, it will become an instant icon in gaming.
You're fighting to change things. Stubborn people change the world. And you are the most stubborn person I know. When one falls, we continue.
What does it take for something to truly be considered art? Is it a display of mastery over one's craft? An accurate expression of an artist's thoughts and emotions? Well, for me, in order for something to truly be considered art, it must be able to give its audience something that reaches beyond the confines of whatever form of media it's constrained to. A moment, maybe, or a life lesson. Something that would stick with you that goes beyond the realm of a screen, a page, or a canvas. You know, while trying to make this video, I had a really hard time with the placements for all of these different games. This honestly was one of the most stacked years for gaming we've had in a very long time. Legitimately, I think any one of these games could have won Game of the Year in any of the weaker years of gaming that we've seen. But through it all, there was one game I never even once considered moving. And that game was Clair Obscur Expedition 33, far and away my personal #1 game of the year. And just like the Game Awards from this year, this game swept pretty much every single category for me. The visuals, first of all, are actually just gorgeous, and the world design for every new biome is seriously mind-blowing. Like, just look at some of these backgrounds. This, paired along with some of the best music I've ever even heard in the medium, creates this amazingly melancholic and otherworldly atmosphere. Even its downsides can really be considered strengths. One of the biggest complaints I see about Expedition 33 is its turn-based combat. And yeah, I can understand why. It's been such a long time that we've seen a really engaging form of combat from a turn-based game. However, the main critique most people have for this form of gaming is the fact that you can't outskill your opponent other than picking better moves or just with straight up luck. Well, Expedition 33 removes this with this parry and counter mechanic, which introduces that level of counterplay that people want. It probably is the most comprehensive and fun turn-based form of combat that I've really experienced, with maybe the exception of Baldur's Gate 3. Just like Silksong, you can truly feel the love and care the developers put into this game, in practically every single aspect. And this is none more present than in the game's story. What starts off as a narrative full of promise and adventure, it slowly evolves into one about grief and the painful truths behind reality. And these sort of themes actually go against a lot of my previous videos. If you want, you can check some of these out. But in these videos, I've usually always touched on the magic behind being absorbed into the world of a video game. It really is an experience like no other. It is easily the best thing about playing a game. However, Expedition 33 pretty much talks about the exact opposite of that. This is a game that centers around the dangers of losing yourself to a non-existent world. While yes, the real world can be scary. It's full of hateful people, impossible expectations, and sometimes moments of grief so unbearable that many of us resort to denying that pain and absorbing ourselves into a separate reality. But we also so often forget the things that truly make life worth living. Whether it be your loved ones, a passion you fully devote yourself to, or a single purpose that drives your every moment. These are the things that give our lives meaning, yet are the same things we deny ourselves when we absorb ourselves into a video game. This is the danger that Expedition 33 warns about. Just like Mayel, we too can't fall victim to this trap. No matter how incredibly fun a video game is, no matter how much we wish we could be transported to a different world, in the end, none of it is real. And so, rather than neglect the meaningful things in life, Expedition 33 encourages you to cherish them. Kind of ironically, it indirectly tells you to stop playing itself, to get off of your screen and experience the joys of real life. These ideas it presented really resonated with me, and on a level few things are ever able to. A game is not just a vehicle to have fun, or an easy escape from the troubles of daily life. You can actually learn from it. Learn about different viewpoints, learn about the thoughts and emotions of the developers, and most importantly, give you an opportunity to learn about yourself. Expedition 33 is truly a work of art. A high quality game that not only contains a story with real heart, but is able to touch its audience in ways that will affect them for a really long time. And this is why I absolutely love video games. They're able to reach its audience in ways no other form of media can, and continually demonstrates why so many of us gamers fall in love with this medium with every new game that we play. 2025 may not have been the absolute pinnacle of gaming, at least in terms of big brand names. But I can pretty confidently say that it gave us some of the best and most influential games in history. And I know, it's pretty boring to give my Game of the Year to one that already won like basically every major award at the Game Awards. But this truly is just that good of a game. Even in a completely stacked year like 2025, it was still able to shine so far ahead from everybody else that it was pretty much a given. And so, as we close the door on this incredible year, I can't help but feel excited for whatever masterpieces we'll see coming up next. Although, with the way things have been going, we still probably aren't gonna get GTA 6 for at least another couple of years. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and whatever else I'm supposed to say at the end of this video. Thanks again for watching, and see you guys next year.